Good morning. So we're finally heading back towards home. We've had a great couple of weeks in rural Victoria and Adelaide, Barossa Valley. I think we've got about 400 bottles of wine in the back, so that'll be interesting to see how that affects efficiency. If you're visiting the Barossa, they're all sold out, unfortunately. Currently, we're going to go via Shepparton. We're going to stay a night there on the way back. So we're leaving with 84% battery. We've got a supercharger stop at Keith, expected to get there at 26%, and Horsham, expected to get there at 16%. And we'll see how that all pans out. So a couple of requests I had in the comments section to show more efficiency stats. I think it was TB that requested it, and keep those comments coming in, they're really appreciated. So we're currently on 116 watt hours per kilometre for the last 50 kilometres. Projected range is about 430 kilometres. We'll see how that pans out with a full load and extra wine bottles. But I'll keep those updated as we go along. For those who might not have seen part 1 of this video series, this is our basic route. We're going back now via Shepparton. I hadn't done the drive out to Adelaide before, so I was relying on other advice. Just after I booked the trip, there's a bunch of new chargers opened up on that northern leg there through Mildura, which would have been an interesting drive, especially given the road conditions that I found towards Shepparton. They couldn't have been any worse. So in hindsight, I probably would have taken that one. So with all of the side trips and sightseeing, we've actually gone over 3,000 kilometres already. It's likely to be about 3,800 by the time we get home. But the Model 3 has been awesome throughout, and have really enjoyed taking it on this road trip. That said, let's get on the road and we'll be back soon. Alright, so we're about 2 hours out from Keith Supercharger. If you didn't catch the first episode of this trip, using FSD/EAP, there's a full explanation of what those acronyms mean and what they can do in that first episode, but certainly takes a lot of the load off the driving. We've been going about 45 minutes now, we've got another 2 hours, so it's a decent first leg, and definitely be time to get a stretch and a bit of a break from driving while this gets a quick charge. We've got currently estimated 31% now at Keith, so obviously coming up and down the mountains and that kind of thing has an effect, and we'll see how we go. And I'll try and remember to get those stats for you guys that are keen on seeing them. It's actually funny, when I was driving an ICE vehicle, I used to always monitor the fuel efficiency. I guess the incentive there was the high price of petrol and having to stuff around going to a petrol station, which is annoying. Since I've had the EV, I really haven't paid any attention at all to efficiency and that kind of stuff. But as you'll see, the Tesla's efficiency is amazing compared to other EVs. Especially the Highland model is the most aerodynamic and fuel efficient vehicle you can get. So it definitely makes a big difference. So a couple of hours in, and most of the last 100 kilometres or so has been on undivided roads like these, which previously I've been a bit reluctant to use the full self-driving on. It does sometimes get freaked out by cars coming around the corner, but there hasn't been a single slowdown on this trip. So Elon's doing a great job driving on your Elon. I know you watch all my videos, so thanks very much. Yeah, look, we'll be at Supercharger shortly. Currently 28% predicted arrival. So to charge, been a perfect drive. Anyhow, see you soon. Alright, so we've made it to Keith. 2 other Teslas here charging up. We're scheduled to be here 25 minutes. We've arrived here with 28%. Have a quick look at our efficiency stats. We've used a little bit more than we expected, 2.8% more. We've actually been going since last charge 268 kilometres, 220. Yeah, we've also had Sentry mode on overnight at the hotel, so that's dropped a bit of percentage there. But we'll have a look at efficiency for the last bit. So last 50 kilometres, averaging 114 watt hours per kilometre. So I'll go ahead, plug in, use the bathrooms, go to the little bakery here, and we're back soon. Alright, back in the car. We just went and used the bathrooms, had a bit of a bite to eat and sit down. The car pinged us about 3 minutes ago on the phone to say that we're ready to go. So we haven't taken any extra time again. We're at 74%. This supercharger is one of the older version 2s and shared, so we were only getting about 60 kilowatts, so it's a pretty slow charge, but it's given us enough to get to where we need to go without taking any extra time, and we'll arrive there at Horsham with 32%. And just a reminder, as I mentioned in previous videos, this is the rear-wheel drive short range Tesla, so it is shorter range than the long range obviously, and also charges slower than the long range. So certainly for those who don't need to go to toilets and have food breaks and leg stretches, there certainly is the option of the long range to have fewer stops and quicker stops, but as you can see here, it hasn't been a problem. There's absolutely a noticeable difference between the East Coast corridor, say from Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, to when you start heading out west to Adelaide. The quality, speed and number of superchargers is definitely way more on the East Coast, but that's very quickly building out, so that won't be an issue for too long either. Forgot to mention the last charging stop, $18.27 was the cost. Again, pay a lot more at superchargers than you do at home, but still a lot cheaper than $2 a litre at the moment for petrol. Anyhow, we're currently hour 46 from Supercharger Horsham, and we'll see you there. Okay, at Horsham now, we've made it with 29%. Looks like we're a little bit better than expected. We've had a few roadworks and bits and pieces, slow vehicles. Looks like we've had a bit more downhill than uphill this time, so it's got us here with a good amount. And it's saying an hour charge time. So we'll go have lunch and see how that goes, see how much time we have to wait, and we'll let you know. Sorry, I'll just do the efficiency as well. So sitting on 118 watt hours per kilometre for the last 50 kilometres. And how good are these ventilated seats? They're kicking every now and again. They're really nice. Anyhow, time for some lunch and stretch your legs, and we'll come back soon. So we've just started charging and getting a decent charge rate, and it's actually saying 35 minutes, so we'll probably be still having lunch then. We'll see how we go. Alright, so just had lunch, had a bit of a break and toilet breaks, that kind of stuff. Got back to the car and we've got 10 minutes remaining. So on this particular leg, that's 10 minutes of waiting for charging. So if you had to fuel up, that's another 7 or 8 minutes that would have been spent at the Bowsers, fueling up, paying, etc. So it's pretty much a wash anyway. But if you want to keep track, that's a 10-minute waiting for an EV charge, where we wouldn't have been, where we haven't been doing something else anyhow that we'd be doing on a nice vehicle. Good location. It's got a little shopping centre there, so plenty of food options. Not too far off the beaten track. Currently scheduled to arrive at the hotel at 6:30 in Shepparton. If you notice the time difference there, we crossed time zone, so we lost some time there, but that's not too bad. Happy with that. And in 9 minutes we'll be able to continue our trip. Notice the charge rate has come right down. As I mentioned in one of the previous videos, once you get over 80%, then the charge rate does come right down. Unfortunately, in this case, the destination is 320 kilometres away. We'd probably make it now. Actually, it's saying we'd make it with 10%, but I'm not going to risk it. We'll just trust what the Tesla's telling us it wants to do. There's no other superchargers between now and there. We could find another charger if we wanted to, but I think it's just easier to get charged up here, and we'll wear the extra time with the slower charge rate. There's no one else waiting here. Right, so on the way to Shepparton now, and the last charging session cost $26.40, so that was a big one, and cost 10 minutes extra time. We should be arriving at Shepparton with 20%, 19%, and we'll head off now. Alright, so we're about 2.5 hours out of our hotel, still travelling well, very rural Victoria. certainly not the most remote places you can find in Australia. There's actually 7 that we know of, Teslas that are currently crossing the Nullarbor, which is about as remote as you can get in the world. It's definitely an unforgiving area out there, but I think there's 4 going one way and 3 going the other way. There's also another guy with a caravan towing going around Australia, circumnavigating Australia, which is the second time I know of that's happened. I think it may have happened more than once, but I at least know this is the second time I've heard of someone circumnavigating with a caravan. Sorry, certainly many have done it without caravans, but for those who say you can't tow with an EV, and also, you know, we're in a pretty remote area at the moment, in a short range EV with no issues again. So yeah, definitely no issues at all. Anyhow, catch us back later on. So we've got estimated arrival of 26%, so still doing pretty well. Again, these country roads do take a bit more out of it than proper highways and freeways. Some of the roads on these sections were pretty challenging, dodging potholes that would swallow a whole car, and some sections where it was just a gravel road with a small bit of tarmac in the middle, and you got trucks coming in the other way that would not slow down for anything. I did manage to capture some dash cam video. We weren't going to video and we were concentrating that hard, but I've got some dash cam video here of a truck passing to give you an idea what it's like. A similar road conditions from Warrnambool to the Barossa as well. As you can see, he wasn't slowing down for anything, so yeah, it's not a great road to be driving on with a new car. Another dash cam of interest, especially for our international viewers. Our wildlife here likes to hold street parties, and in this case we've got a bunch of galahs and a couple of cockatoos. I just slowed right down or I would have ploughed right through them, but we had a few little parties like this we had to drive through. Just another bit of Australiana for you. Okay, we've arrived in Shepparton, 26%, so roughly what we expected. And looks like the graph's pretty good, even though the roads were pretty crap coming through here. So see how we went with consumption, averaging 119 over the last 50 kilometers, and definitely ready to get some food and get a night's sleep, and then we'll see you in the morning for our last bit of this leg. So just at the Shepparton Superchargers, getting a quick charge. The hotel had charging, but they forgot to mention that you need to bring your own Type 2 cable, so we just pop down here and get a charge while we had breakfast, and the car's ready to go again well before we were, so we'll get on the road shortly. So just a view through our filthy windscreen. It doesn't show up as much on this camera, but it's pretty filthy, as is the car. Yeah, so most, or pretty much all the hotels we stayed at had charging available. 2 of them had a paid charging where you needed to bring your own Type 2 cable. Most of the hotels we didn't bother charging at either, just didn't need to. But this one would have been good. We could have done it while we slept, but in the end we just came out, and 1 block away it was a Tesla Supercharger. Again, it's empty, so we haven't had more than 1 or 2 cars at any Supercharger we've put up to, so definitely no issues. Sometimes peak times you might get a little bit of a lineup, but these days with the number of Superchargers they've got, it's working really well. So we had breakfast, came back, we're at 87%. We only needed probably 40% to get to Albury. We're going to arrive there with 41%, so again, no waiting. The car was ready well before we were. We'll get on our way to Albury, see if we can find somewhere to clean this windscreen a little bit so I can see through it. But we'll see the cost of that charge. It was $26.65, so I'll add that to the tally as well. We'll tally all that up right at the end and work out how much the trip costs on charging and compare it to ICE costs, and go from there. Anyhow, we'll get on the road and I'll talk to you soon. So just a couple more thoughts on the hotel charging situation as we head towards Albury. It's very easy to find hotels with charging these days. and they seem to be coming on board very frequently. There's a few of the major chains now have signed deals with Tesla to provide destination charges. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find out what type of charger they do have though. PlugShare is probably your best bet to try and find out. If it's got a destination charger, a Tesla destination charger, they are generally free, so a great option. They most of the hotels and even the vineyards, most of the vineyards had them as well. Have them set, or at least they told us they had them set for Tesla only. They can, assuming they own the charger, they can adjust them and allow any vehicle to charge, but the signage and the comments we got from the staff were that they were Tesla only. So just be aware of that if you've got another type of EV, but it is possible for them to set them so that any EV can charge from them. The other ones we found were a paid charger that required your own Type 2 cable I mentioned earlier. They were just advertised as having EV charging, and both of the hotels that had those type of chargers didn't have cables available. You'd think they could have one behind the desk, and especially if they're earning money out of it, it'd be a good option for them. But in both cases they didn't. One case didn't matter, I didn't need to charge anyway. So last night I could have charged there, but ended up charging the Tesla Supercharger, which was just fine. Didn't take any more time, but it could have been a bit of an earner for the hotel if I'd charged there overnight. So a bit of a missed opportunity for them. But definitely, if you've got an EV, I recommend supporting hotels that have charging, even if you're not going to use them. It's good to see them putting that infrastructure out there, and it's great if you are there overnight. You get a charge while you're sleeping. In so many hotels you can wake up in the morning and have a full tank of gas after sleeping all night. So yeah, it's another great advantage of having the EV. Anyhow, Elon's driving us again, doing a great job. Thanks, Elon. And we'll be about an hour and a half to get to Albury. We don't really need to charge much there. We're going to have 47% when we get there, and that's almost enough to get home. So we'll just do a quick charge there and grab something to eat and head off. Alright, so about 40 minutes out from Albury. Again, Autopilot's working fantastically. Hasn't been a single issue. It's just been a fantastic way of making the trip a lot less stressful, a lot less tiring. I added up the kilometres last night. We'd already well done over 3,000, so I think it's going to be about a 4,000 kilometre round trip by the time we get home. And it's been a great experience. Even being off the beaten track on the with the EV certainly presented a little bit of a challenge, but it certainly wasn't less enjoyable than an ICE vehicle, that's for sure. I certainly wouldn't do it in an ICE again. And along these routes where you're in the major sort of travel corridors, it's just fantastic. Anyhow, we'll come back when we get to Albury and do our charging stats. I forgot to mention we had our first steering wheel nag. Never thought I'd be excited to get a steering wheel nag, but we actually got one after about 4,000 kilometres worth of driving, mostly on Autopilot. So we're going through some road works, about a couple of kilometres worth, and finally got one steering wheel nag. So about 4,000 kilometres, mostly on highways, but some single lane, undivided highways as well. But yeah, finally got a steering wheel nag. Fantastic. Anyhow, catch you later on. Alright, so just arrived Albury again, no one here. So we've got 16 charges to ourselves. Look at our efficiency, used a little bit more than expected. Uphill, used more than downhill, obviously. We've got a consumption average 128 watt hours per kilometre for the last 50 kilometres. Says a 40-minute charge here, but based on last time that happened a lot quicker than that. By the time we've had lunch, it'll definitely be well and truly charged and with enough charge to get home. Anyhow, we'll go ahead and plug in, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Alright, so that's only been about 20 minutes and we're almost full. Almost ready to go. 2 minutes saying remaining, although if we left right now we'd have 13% at our destination, so we'll just give it that extra buffer. We just had time to go to the toilets and have a quick break, grab a quick lunch, and it's already ready to go. So the 40 minutes is kind of a worst case. The actual charge speed will depend on your battery temperatures, how many people are charging in some cases, depending on the station, all those sorts of things. So it'll quickly update as you start charging, and it very quickly updated to about 20 minutes once we got up to speed. Anyhow, I can go ahead and start unplugging, and we're off. So this trip, we haven't, obviously we're going to wait say 2 or 3 minutes compared to an average fuel station stop of 7 or 8 minutes. We've saved time on this trip with the EV, so again, really don't see you'd have to be doing everything absolutely deliberately wrong to make it make a trip like this take more than a ICE vehicle, let alone 2 hours more, as some people claim. Anyhow, this is our last leg. We'll be home in 3.5 hours. So if there's anything interesting on the way, I'll speak to you again. Otherwise, I'll be back with a wrap up. And just almost forgot again, the last charging session. So this charge was $17.69. So again, that'll all go into the tally, and I'll give the full breakdown once we get to the wrap up. Alright, so we're just under 2 hours out from Canberra. Just a quick sit rep efficiency update for those that are keen. So we've used a lot more than expected, staying below 110. So allegedly I was over 110, but that's obviously a mistake. Going uphill cost 9%, going downhill save 7.5. So yeah, it's a bit of hilly terrain. As you can see, the peaks there and the troughs going up and down the hills. Obviously you do get some energy back regenning downhill, but it's never a zero-sum game. You're obviously going to lose some efficiency as you go through. So we average 127 watt-hour per kilometre for the stretch. Anyhow, we've got just under 2 hours and we'll be home. So currently it's saying 12%, which alright, pretty much home now. We're still only going to have 10% when we get there, which is fine. I'm quite happy with 5 to 10% in these sort of areas. So we'll look at our still below the glide slope as far as consumption goes, efficiency. Mainly uphill 20%, only save 16 downhill, so it isn't accusing us of speeding anymore, so that's good. Consumption, we're looking at 135, yeah, so it's been up and down with obviously the mountains and hills and valleys, that kind of stuff. So we're gonna stop off and get some stuff from the grocery store, so I'll probably wait to do another video while we're driving. I'll do a wrap up once I get home and add up all the numbers and that kind of stuff, and we'll go from there. Okay, so back home again now, and done all the maths for that leg. So as far as timings go, we had a 10-minute wait on the leg from Glenelg to Shepparton, and about a 3-minute wait on the Shepparton to Canberra leg. So 13 minutes all up in actual waiting for charging. Everything else was while we're eating lunch, while we're having a bit of a break and stretch the legs, as you would do in an ICE vehicle. So if you look at least 2 fuel stops, noting that I've based all my stats on getting back here and charging back to 100%. So you'd have at least 2 fuel stops of 7 to 8 minutes each. We've actually saved time on that journey from Glenelg to Canberra that it would have taken longer in an ICE vehicle. As far as costs go, we spent $94. That's including all the supercharging and the cost to get back to 100% once we got home. Same kilometres in an ICE vehicle would have been $166. So saving of $72 for that part of the journey. Definitely a pretty significant saving. It's almost half the cost. So that's again proving that ICE vehicles do cost a lot more than an EV. You don't save any significant time. In fact, in this case, if you look at it objectively, we would have saved time in the EV. Certainly, if we had a long-range vehicle, again, you'd save even more time, especially in those remote regions where there's fewer charging options. The faster charge of the long range and the fewer stops obviously makes a difference as well. But look, if you were travelling those sorts of areas regularly, then a long range would definitely be worth considering. Other factors, the Autopilot, as I mentioned in the video, that whole leg was fantastic. The only issue we had, and I actually caught it on video, and I'm interested to see if any of your eagle-eyed viewers out there actually spotted it. It tried to take an exit lane once, and in the current behaviour, it actually indicates, and then either, in most cases, it cancels itself out before it does anything. Back when I did the last long road trip, back in November last year, it would actually start to take an exit lane and then realise it didn't need to, and kind of give it a bit of a swerve. But nowadays, it doesn't even do that. In this case, it just indicated and cancelled itself out before I even had time to react. But it gives you a warning, so you know now that it's thinking of something stupid. And if it doesn't cancel itself, which I think 9 times out of 10 it did, then you can obviously cancel and override it very quickly without actually even moving. Even in the old versions, it never actually left a lane. It would just move slightly in the lane and sort of swerve back, which was annoying, but not dangerous at all. But it's great to see that they've improved that. And the Autopilot does make a huge difference as far as fatigue and driving those long distances. So it was a great improvement. So as far as the whole journey goes, we actually ended up doing just slightly over 4,000 kilometres all up. As far as timing goes, I kind of ignored that middle section where we were just doing sightseeing, taking the Great Ocean Road. We ended up doing a lot of backtracking, trying to find, ironically, a gas station to get some food because everything was closed. We really should have broken that trip up and stopped overnight in Warrnambool. Would have been a lot better, and that's irrelevant whether it was an EV or an ICE car. Just driving through till 2 in the morning and having to go through those areas late at night where the roads were pretty shocking, kangaroos everywhere, that kind of stuff, wasn't the best decision. But look, at best, you could say that the time taken was a wash. It would have been no different in EV or ICE, nothing significant. We saved time on some legs. We use a few minutes extra on other legs. If you were trying to add up the scenic route we took on Great Ocean Road, you might have taken an extra hour going through those country areas. But again, that's really irrelevant and wouldn't have been the case if we had stayed at Warrnambool. We would have gone through those areas during the day when things were open and be able to eat and charge at the same time. The big takeaway, always be charging. ABC is definitely a philosophy to use in EVs. So, and what I mean by that is make use of the time you're stopping. Stop for lunch, stop for dinner at a charger or near a charger so you can be charging while you're eating, having those breast breaks, that kind of stuff. It makes the trip a lot safer. I know there's people out there, and I certainly can put my hand up and say I did it when I was much younger and stupider, driving 14 hours with very few breaks and just grabbing, the servo food as we fill up and that kind of thing is certainly not a healthy way to go and not a safe way to drive. Fortunately, I grew out of that habit very early on and well before I went to EVs, and always took 2.5 to 3 hour breaks in an ICE vehicle as it should be done. It's not safe to do otherwise. You need that toilet break. You need the stretched legs. You need to be able to get away, especially when you haven't got the tools that the Tesla has, like the Autopilot. It does get very tiring. You're doing a 14-hour stretch. Yeah, look, there's no real change to my driving habits from going from the ICE vehicle to the EV. And if you're, especially on the East Coast corridors, there's absolutely no time wasted waiting for charges, that kind of thing. Certainly going out away from the East Coast into the sort of more remote areas of Australia, The long range definitely shines, and the fastest charging speed, giving yourself more options, is definitely something that people who travel in those sorts of areas regularly may want to consider. But for around cities, like 99% of the people drive 99% of the time, the short range is got more than enough. You could do it with half the range of the short range rear-wheel drive Tesla Model 3. Even where I drive up to Brisbane and back 2 or 3 times a year, I don't see a need for a long range. There's just so many charging options along the East Coast. You're passing 2 or 3 before you stop at one. So you've got all the choices in the world. You can pick where you want to eat and charge up there. And like you saw in these videos, 9 times out of 10, the car's going to be ready well before you are. So there's no waiting around. All right, so far as costs go, the total cost for the whole 4,000 kilometres, including home charging before and after, getting it back to 100%, was $304. So obviously most of that was in supercharging, which is a lot more expensive than home charging, in the order of 10 times more expensive. So in an ICE vehicle, the same kilometres, and getting back to a full tank at home would have been $522. So $118 worth of savings. So that's a very significant difference. But obviously that's the worst case scenario. When you're on a road trip, you're saving a lot more than that just driving around the city, because you're charging at home, and it's a lot cheaper again, and you don't have to wait at all then, because you're charging overnight or whenever it suits you, not sitting there waiting for the car to charge. As far as the overall Tesla or EV driving experience, it's definitely a lot less tiring being in a vehicle. You're not vibrating, there's a lot less noise. I think that makes a difference. The driver assist features of the Tesla are second to none, and certainly I used the Autopilot / FSD or enhanced Autopilot, the versions that are available in Australia, 90% of the time at least. It was flawless. We had a couple of slowdowns on the way down. We caught one of those on video. That was the most significant one. The rest of them were only 1 or 2 kilometres an hour, just a very brief slowdown. We had the refusal to change lane, where the road camber was quite drastic. We caught that in the video as well. Minor issues, definitely not safety related. We saw the trying to take an exit lane, where it just indicates now, usually only 1 or 2 blinks, and it realises and cancels it out. So that's definitely a big improvement over the last time I did a long road trip last year. And that's good to see that even though the Australian version is so far behind the current versions, they are still doing some improvements to it, but hopefully soon the authorities will allow us to have the latest versions, and that'll be even better again. Anyhow, I hope this has been something that you've enjoyed and been informative at least. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please give us a thumbs up, share and like the video, be much appreciated, and we'll catch you again soon with another adventure.